Yes, good morning and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. It's yet another beautiful Wednesday morning that we are coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda. And it's a pleasure to be back with you to speak more sport. Today we'll be tackling a number of topics or issues that have dominated the world of sport. In as far as transfers are concerned, in as far as the UEFA Europa League is concerned, including Chelsea, are back in the news, not for footballing reasons, but for other reasons, and not anywhere remotely related to what any of you may assume or even predict, because this has to do with their former owner in Roman Abramovich. Yes, you had it right. Roman Abramovich is back in the news, and the UK government is threatening to drag him to court. We're going to be finding out why that is the case in today's broadcast. But welcome back to this edition of Football Tribe UG, and on this broadcast. So we're going to be discussing that and more. So as I wait for all of you to join us this morning, let me get a few things sort of said so that we can get into the gist of today's conversation. But otherwise, we'll be back. Thank you to all our, subscribers. Thank you to all our new community members. Thank you to our usual suspects. Yesterday, we did have a very, very good conversation or engagement with Prince Nkosi there in last night's broadcast, among others that were on the broadcast, as well as I think, was it February? February was with us the other day. We did miss the likes of Safa Ali, Mr. Leo, Boss Royal, Peter Parker. We did miss him for last night's broadcast, but it's all well. Thank you really, really so much. Then Crystal Palace's Europa League. Europa League is under threat. So we're going to be looking at that as well. And then the transfers, of course, latest in as far as the transfers are concerned. The latest, excuse me. So that's what we're going to be discussing and much more in today morning's broadcast. But I hope you're all doing well. I want to send my shout outs to those that do watch our broadcasts later, much later, after they've aired, after the broadcasts have been concluded. We do not take your efforts and time for granted. We do really, really appreciate you for continuing to support this channel and what we do on the journey for growth. So you're equally much appreciated for the love and support that you do render to Football Tribe. We do hope that you continue that up. I will be looking to sort of engage you further in the coming days. We did put out some short clips. For those of you that have been watching our shorts on the channel, thank you so much. Yesterday we did, speak about Bruno Fernandes, spoke about Brian Mbuemo, and you guys really love those pieces of content, and you did watch them. So thank you so much. And then, yes, the other is Maria Momoto. Yes, we did have Maria Momoto on our broadcast. So that was for yesterday's broadcast. And it was a fruitful engagement. It was really, really a fruitful engagement. So let's keep it up. Let's keep it up. But like I said, today we're going to be discussing why the UK government is threatening to take Chelsea, to take former Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich to court. Yes, and here is why. So that's where we are kicking off today's conversation from, with the news regarding Roman Abramovich, because the UK government is threatening to take him to court, to drag him to court over the sale of Chelsea. Now, here's the background of it all. You all remember, I think it was February 2022, when Russia launched an invasion on Ukraine. They called it a special military operation. They called it. It turned into a war. It's a war. It's an invasion. It is what you may call it. And I know it's a bit of a delicate topic to talk about because of what because of the kind of differences of opinion that it may draw. Not for me personally, but for some of our followers possibly. And but we won't get into the semantics of the war. So once Russia invaded Ukraine, the UK government moved to sanction Russia, including some of the Russian oligarchs or those Russian billionaires that are believed to be close to the Russian president in Vladimir Putin. And among them is the Chelsea owner, Roman Abramovich. So he was equally sanctioned by the UK government. And as time went by, Chelsea started to struggle a bit financially. At least that's what the reports were betting. And that Chelsea were on the verge or were under the threat of going out of business after their owner was sanctioned. So to try and alleviate that situation, the UK government extended an olive branch to Roman Abramovich to allow him sell the club. But to allow him sell the club, again, it was done in a manner, please forgive the background noise, somebody just decided to start their car. Anyways, it is what it is. So, but as they extended that olive branch, it was conditional that Roman Abramovich was not going to take the proceeds of the sale of the club. Now, of course, it was unfair, or regardless of how you want to interpret it, but he was being forced to sell his club, and then he was being told the UK government would decide on what the proceeds do. And what did the UK government decide? Is that the proceeds from the sale of Chelsea would go to war victims in Ukraine. So, long story short, Roman Abramovich got into conversation with different suitors, including Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who wanted to buy Chelsea at the time. Of course, he wasn't successful with his bid. There was, I think, disparity in valuation of the club and what he was willing to offer. So many other people expressed interest, but it was Tony Bolly and his partners that won the race. And they bought Chelsea for £2.5 billion. Now, because Roman Abramovich was never going to be given, he was not going to be given the proceeds of that result from selling Chelsea, that money was not going to go into his direct bank accounts. So it went into accounts based in the UK, in London. But in principle and legally speaking, that money belongs to Roman Abramovich. However, he cannot access it. He can't use it. You get it? I don't know if this makes sense to you or you do understand this. He sold the club, but because of the conditions that were preset before the sale of the club and by the UK government based on its sanctions against Russia, he was told you can sell the club, but you cannot take the proceeds. So that means, let's assume, so the proceeds went into some form of kind of neutral bank account to say, but it's not that neutral. So legally speaking, the money belongs to Roman Abramovich because he owned the club, he owned Chelsea. However, the UK government is telling him that money ought to go to war victims of Ukraine. And he says, I will have no problem with that. We'll do that. Now that the money has come, £2.5 billion has been seated in those accounts in a bank in London. Now, the UK government can't use the money because legally it's not their money. It's Roman Abramovich that can grant use of that money because legally it is his. However, even he himself can't just merely access it and use it for his personal gain. Now, where is the issue of contention coming from is that Roman Abramovich wants the money used for war victims. And according to his interpretation or his perception of things, is that war victims are both in Ukraine and in Russia. So in this particular case, he is trying to say that yes, the money, £2.5 billion, will go to war victims, but not only to war victims in the Ukraine. He wants the money to go to war victims in Ukraine as well as Russia. Now, the UK government does not want that money to end up anywhere near Russia. He doesn't want any part of it, any single penny of it going to Russia whatsoever, whether it's for war victims or otherwise. So that's the whole gist of this conundrum of where where Romano Abramovich and the UK government do find themselves in. And because of that, because he's refusing for the money to go entirely to Ukraine or to war victims in the Ukraine, and he's saying some of it should go to war victims in Russia because there are some people in Russia who have been equally affected by the same war. So it is upon that basis that then the UK government is threatening to take Roman Abramovich to court, which they can within their own rights. But will they win? Maybe they can win. But personally, I get the feeling from this neutral standpoint of view, or supposedly neutral or objective, is that they may not win the case. Why? Because he's not saying do not use the money or do not take the money. He's okay the money being used on war victims. But he's simply saying some of it has to go to war victims in Russia. Now, I suspect because the UK doesn't want that to happen, they are sort of trying to dictate the terms here. And after they dictated the terms in the initial phase that included the sale of Chelsea, he's simply saying, I think I'll have a say in this one. So that's the point of contention. And why? And why the UK government is threatening to drag former Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich to court. Will they, move ahead with that? Let's wait and see. Keep your eyes peeled on this channel, and then we'll be keeping you updated if anything does happen in that regard. Away from the Chelsea conundrum or the Roman Abramovich conundrum versus the UK government, we then head to Crystal Palace, where Crystal Palace are sort of under threat of being eliminated from the UEFA Europa League. Now, remember, they did qualify to participate in the UEFA Europa League by the virtue of the fact that they won the FA Cup, beating Man City by a goal to nil in the finals. That was scored by Ebelechi Eze. Now, one would wonder, why would they be knocked out or kicked out of the competition? Well, it is simple. One of their shareholders in John Textor, who owns about 43% of the club, is also a majority shareholder in Olympique Lyon, where he has about 88% controlling shares in the club. Now, the two clubs will be playing in the same competition, which is the UEFA Europa League. And according to the UEFA rules, according to the UEFA rules, or in terms when it comes to UEFA's club financial control body, which is CFCB, they do not allow two teams under the same ownership, whether partial or wholly, to participate in the same competition because it creates a conflict of interest. We've had similar conversations when it came to Man City being in the UEFA Champions League as well as Girona, because Man City owners do have a stake in Girona. We've had similar, going back and forth in regards to RB Leipzig and Red Bull Salzburg. Those are under the same ownership and that kind of thing. So it's not a new sort of analogy or phenomena or conundrum that as a club owner finds themselves in or a club finds themselves in. Just recently, or I think about over a month ago, we did speak about Evangelos Marinakis, the owner of Nottingham Forest, who is also the owner of Greek side Olympiacos. He moved to put his shares or Nottingham Forest under some form of trustee to rid himself of day-to-day management or running of the affairs of the club. Why? Because there was a chance that Nottingham Forest could qualify for the UEFA Champions League, the UEFA Europa League, and then find themselves in the same competition with his other club in Greece, which is Olympiacos. So to try and avoid that, or to try and avoid going through that kind of conundrum, he then moved. What do you think of Mike Mignan moved to Chelsea? We're going to speak about that in just a bit. But thank you, Ahmed Septa, for being with us this morning. Do me the absolute honor and like the broadcast, but it's a pleasure to have you back. We did miss you in our last couple of broadcasts, but it's always a pleasure to have you back. Thank you so much for your question. We'll answer that in a bit. So, because Crystal Palace under John Textor, who has 43% ownership in Crystal Palace and 88% ownership in Lyon, they cannot be in the same competition. And then remember, previously, UEFA's club financial control body had disqualified Lyon for some breaches, and that was last season. But however, when they made their case and UEFA allowed them to proceed, and that's how they ended up playing Manchester United at the quarterfinals. But they were eventually knocked out. I think it was 7-6 on aggregate. Yes, so they proceeded and then were eliminated. And according to the New York Times, Lyon are still being carefully monitored by the UEFA club financial control body to determine if there was any breach whatsoever in breach of a settlement agreement that could disqualify them for next season. Now, if Lyon are found to be in breach of any of that settlement agreement, then it means that Crystal Palace will be allowed to participate in the competition without any hinges whatsoever. But if Lyon are within the good books and there's no need to disqualify them, then it puts Crystal Palace into a bit of an undesirable situation because of their ownership situation. Now, that means that the owner has to move to relinquish his control or his stake in the club. I think in that direction to avoid a conflict of interest. You get it. So that's the explanation for Crystal Palace, but let's hope that everything will be go down smoothly and that Crystal Palace and Lyon will get their day in the competition. Moving away to transfers, let's start from Chelsea, where Ahmed Septa does pose the question, what do I think about Mike Mignan? Now, when you look at the player he's asking about, that's a AC Milan goalkeeper, very good goalkeeper there, the number one goalkeeper for France. Excuse me. Yes, the number one goalkeeper for France, and also the captain at AC Milan. He's a very wonderful goalkeeper. That I must acknowledge, because you do not get to be France's number one taking over from Hugo Lloris, who had been for quite a length of time, and then I think it was Mandanda in between there. So you do not get to be France's number one when you're not good. He did join AC Milan not too far back, and in his debut season, helped them win the Scudetto. That was under the charges of Stefano Pioli. In his Stefano Pioli, that was in 2022. So that was 2021, 2022, because 2022, 2023, it was Napoli that won it. Then Inter Milan 2023, 2024, and then now Napoli reclaimed the title. But yeah, he's a very, very good goalkeeper, only 29 years of age. I did not expect Chelsea to be moving in the market for a goalkeeper, and yet they've done so. He also did, I think, win the league with Lille. That Lille that was under I'm trying to remember who was managing Lille. But he's a very, very good goalkeeper. 29 years of age, mainstay in that AC Milan side, a good leader. He's, like I said, he's won the league before, and he's proven himself at the highest level, really. So, and for me, that was yes, I think about around 2021. Yes, in 2021. They did win the French League One. He did win. He was part of that he was part of Lille, that Lille side that won the French League One. So quite impressive fashion, in quite impressive fashion. And he then moved to AC Milan. And once he moved to AC Milan, it wasn't long that they did appreciate his, qualities. That was in the summer of 2021. They did appreciate his qualities and eventually ended up with the armband, but they won the league under Stefano Pioli. So Chelsea had not been really out and about searching for a goalkeeper, but I think with only a year left to his contract, they saw it as a market opportunity to pounce and say, look, we do have Robert Sanchez, we do have Felipe Jorgensen. Now, Chelsea have already about 8 goalkeepers on their roster. Yes, Chelsea have 8 goalkeepers on their roster. And I remember yesterday, once this news broke, I was speaking to a colleague who is a Chelsea fan, telling him that sooner or later Chelsea could have a whole starting 11 of goalkeepers because they just never stop. You never know. Just put a player on the market and Chelsea will be in for him. I do not know how they do it, but somehow they do it. So Mike McKinnon has, or Mike McKinnon has just a year left to his contract, and Chelsea are seeing it as an opportunity to get a very good goalkeeper, and I think they are going to go for it, and they want him as soon as yesterday. So that's the situation about it. Now, in Chelsea's ranks, they already have Robert Sanchez, Philippe Jorgensen. They do have Mike Penders, Lucas Bergstrom, Kepa Arrizabalaga, who spent the whole of this season on loan to AFC Bournemouth. They do have Petrovic, who spent the whole of this season on loan to Strasbourg in France, where they also had Andre Santos. That's the Brazilian midfielder who did say he wants to play for Chelsea. Very good player. And not so too far back, a couple of weeks back, he was being linked with a potential move to Arsenal because he's a very good sort of number 8 kind of player. Enzo Fernandez mold of player. And then they do have Teddy Shamanlowi. They do have Marcus Bentinelli among their goalkeepers. That's 8. Now they want to add on the 9th. And I remember when they signed Mike Penders, and I'm like, yes, he's a young goalkeeper, and maybe you're looking too far ahead in the future. But why on God's green earth are you even signing a player like Mike Penders when you already have, because at that point they already had Philippe Jorgensen, they already had Robert Sanchez, they already had Bergstrom, they had already Kepa Arrizabalaga. Excuse me. Remember, Kepa Arrizabalaga spent last season on loan to Real Madrid. So really, that's the situation in regards to Chelsea and their pursuit of the AC Milan goalkeeper, Mike McKinnon. I hope that answers your question. Ahmed Septa, thank you for being with us. Anyways, moving away from the Chelsea goalkeeper, but still staying with Chelsea. Of course, we know they are completing a deal for. They've completed the deal for Liam Delap on a 6-year contract. That's for the 2020 for the 22-year-old England international, who will be part of their squad for the FIFA Club World Cup, a competition that they will be taking seriously because their owners are American. It's going to be played in the United States of America, and another opportunity for sort of Enzo Maresca to cement his word with Chelsea as their gaffer, and another opportunity for a piece of silverware. If they can win it, they can go ahead to write history as the first team to win the FIFA Club World Cup, the expanded FIFA Club World Cup that this time around has as many as 32 teams. So that is there as part of motivation going into that tournament. Then the other player they are considering recruiting is Jamie Gittens from Borussia Dortmund, who is valued at about anywhere between 30 and 50 million pounds for the 20-year-old English winger. Now, of course, they do focus on him in the aftermath of knowing that they won't be able to keep a hold of Jadon Sancho, for whom they are negating their obligation to buy for 25 million pounds after a season-long loan at Chelsea from Manchester United, because they could not come to terms or to an agreement with Jadon Sancho over, personal terms. So they do remain in the market for Jamie Gittens, but among the considerations is Kaoru Mitoma as well as Nico Williams, who, according to Spanish outlets, Nico Williams is now going to enter contract talks or contract extension talks with Athletic Bilbao, with the hope that that will result into raising his release clause that currently stands at 58 million euros, and perhaps an increase in his wages. His wages are already high enough, so much to the extent that it kind of sort of throws off a potential suitors from the Premier League. But let's wait and see what they're able to make of that. Still at Chelsea, they are still interested in signing Hugo Ekitike. That's the international fat striker, 22 years of age, for the French international. Very, very brilliant player who is also a target for Liverpool. Although at the moment, Liverpool are focusing on completing deals for Milos Kerkez as well as Florian Wirtz from Bournemouth and Bayer Leverkusen, respectively. So keep your eyes peeled on those situations and let's see how they will go down. So that's the latest in as far as Chelsea are concerned. Moving away from Chelsea and on to the latest from the transfer gossip. Of course, we do understand that Tottenham Hotspur captain Son Heung-min is now a target for Saudi Arabian clubs. While Spurs wouldn't want to, lose him, I think if a good offer comes for a player that is 32 years of age, then they could indeed consider cashing in on the Korean international, who has been a very, very good servant for the club, and until the start of until the start of last season, but when that was 2023-2024, he was made captain after Hurricane left for FC Bayern Munich. So, whereas he's a player that they really need, I think if a good offer does come, for a player of his age profile, then Tottenham would look to cash in on him. But that's according to the Daily Telegraph, who say Tottenham forward Son Heung-min is a target for Saudi Arabian clubs, and Spurs could choose to cash in on the 32-year-old South Korean as they look to generate transfer funds. Remember, they were trying to sign Johnny Cardoso from Real Betis. That's a midfielder, but it looks like Atletico Madrid are going to beat them to the punch on the signing of Johnny Cardoso. Then Manchester United winger Jadon Sancho could also be heading to Saudi Arabia or to the Saudi Pro League, with Al Hilal, Al Ittihad, and Al Nassr all interested in the 25-year-old England international. Now, yesterday, for those of you that were part of us, we did speak quite extensively about the situation of Jadon Sancho with Man United in relation to Chelsea and everything in that line. He spent the whole of last season on loan for Man United, Chelsea, and we do understand that Chelsea did not pay any pennies whatsoever in the form of loan fees to Man United for Jadon Sancho. However, they did agree to pay at least 50% of his reported £300,000 per week. His 300,000 weekly wages. So, because they agreed to that, they then had an obligation to buy at the end of the contract for £25 million. They chose not to exercise that. Yes, they wanted to exercise that because I think this season has been arguably the best season that Jadon Sancho has had ever since he did move to the Premier League, joining Manchester United in the summer of 2021 from Borussia Dortmund, when Man United were under the charges of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Now, unfortunately for him, it was only a couple of months after he had joined the club, and when that season started, 2021-2022, things did not go according to plan for him with Man United, because Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was eventually sacked in November and replaced by Ralf Rangnick as an interim. And then in the summer of 2022, they brought in Erik ten Hag. In that season alone, 2021-2022, he managed to score 5 goals and provide 3 assists. So it wasn't pretty for a player that had been bought quite expensively for a fee in the region of £73 million. So, but they stuck with him. They wanted to give him more time to find his mojo, because he had been quite impressive. He was one of the most sought after talents while still at Borussia Dortmund. I think in one of those seasons he had a tally. I think in his final season with Dortmund, he had a tally of about 16 goals and 17 assists. So quite impressive. He did want to play off the left wing, but that place was already occupied by Marcus Rashford. So he eventually was sent to the right wing, where he preferred maybe the rest. So this season alone, he only scored 3 goals and provided 4 assists for Chelsea in 31 games. That's a 7-goal contribution. It's not the best, but those goals, when they came at crucial moments. And then he did score in the finals of the UEFA Conference League, but also overall helped Chelsea qualify for Champions League football next season, which is what may have persuaded his bosses at Chelsea to consider signing him permanently on condition that he would reduce on his wages. And then, because Chelsea, like we spoke, do have an incentivized based kind of contracts where they give you a certain wage or salary, and then majority of the other pay comes in the form of incentives to incentivize their players into playing well, into winning games, into winning competitions, and that kind of thing. So Jadon Sancho declined those discussions, or they couldn't find an agreement with Chelsea, and then he ended up saying his goodbyes last night. I need to find that message from Jadon Sancho while saying goodbye to Chelsea. He did say, oh, where did I put that message? Yes, he did say, grateful for the experience, big love for everyone at Chelsea who made me feel at home, teammates, staff, and the fans, wishing the club all the best moving forward. That was his goodbye message to the Chelsea team there. After confirming that they won't be retaining him and he will be returning to Manchester United. Now, Chelsea, for failing to fulfill their obligation to buy Jadon Sancho, they will be paying Man United at least £5 million in compensation. So, excuse me about that. So they'll be paying Chelsea £5 million in compensation for that failure to fulfill that obligation. So, of course, with United, given what happened with him and the manager Erik ten Hag, you do remember back in September 2023, he had been left out of the matchday squad as Man United made the trip to the Emirates Stadium to play Arsenal, where they lost by 3-1. Marcus Rashford on target for United, while Martin Odegaard, Declan Rice, and Gabriel Martinelli were on target for the hosts. In the aftermath of that game, the manager Erik ten Hag was questioned over, Jadon Sancho's omission from the matchday squad, and he said he didn't think he was giving his all in training. He didn't train well, and which didn't rub the player the right way. He quickly responded through a post on his social media, particularly on Instagram. Although he since deleted that particular post, but he did say he was being scapegoated. His name was being dragged in the mud for reasons he didn't find well justifiable. So, and that kind of thing really. So, anyways, the relationship between him and Erik ten Hag went sour, and he ended up being frozen out of the team. Of course, he brought issues in the dressing room and that kind of thing. But eventually, in January 2024, he returned to Borussia Dortmund on loan until the end of the season. And while he did not make so many significant contributions in terms of scoring or assisting goals, he scored about 3 goals and provided 6 assists, but also saw Dortmund reach the finals of the UEFA Champions League before losing to Real Madrid. So he did return to the club, hoping to be integrated back in the club, but I think his fate was already done and sealed, and that's how he ended up moving to Chelsea. So he looks like he will be returning to Chelsea, but that is all now on the basis that there is interest from Al Hilal, Al Ittihad, and Al Nassr in the Saudi Pro League in the 25-year-old England international. Only 25 years of age, still quite young, a player that should be, by any means necessary, be entering his prime. And yet, his Premier League career is not even half of what Darren Beatty's career was. Not to say that Darren Bendy was a bad player. So, but that's how unpretty it is on paper for the England international, because eventually he was left out of the World Cup squad for 2022, and now he was trying to fight back his way into the World Cup squad for 2026, and staying at Chelsea possibly could have given him that opportunity, but it looks like it won't be happening. Excuse me. So it looks like that won't be happening really, because the two clubs have failed to agree to terms. Sorry, the two parties in Chelsea and Jordan Sancho, especially regarding his wages. So, anyways, moving forward. Real Sociedad midfielder Martin Zubimendi, 26, has cast doubt over a move to Arsenal, with the Spanish international saying he has options and is unsure about where he will end up. Now, Martin Zubimendi did give an interview, like I told you guys yesterday. Spain are preparing to play France in the semi-finals of the UEFA Nations League, and well, the other semi-final will be today, in fact, between Portugal and Germany. I think we should look forward to doing that game. To follow the updates of that game. I should be able to give you something regarding that game. So let me put it on my schedule so that we do not forget it. So Germany versus Portugal, that game will come at 10 p.m. East African time. Maybe in fact, because of that game, guys, our broadcast may be coming much later on as compared to the usual days of 10 p.m. So we could come as late as 11 p.m. Because of that game. So that means at around its halftime, maybe that's when we could look to coming live. So, but like we're discussing the situation with Martin Zubimendi. So he did make some comments regarding his supposed move to Arsenal, and he did disqualify some of those rumors. I'm trying to look for the exact quote. I do not want to misquote him, because a lot has been said. I do not know whether he said it, all of it, but here's what part of what he had to say while speaking in an interview ahead of that game between Spain and France for the semi-finals of the UEFA Nations League. So Martin Zubimendi on Arsenal medical reports, he says, it's an example of what surrounds football. Many times I wake up in the morning and read things that I didn't know I had done, and that was a clear example. It's true that I do not take it very seriously, but anyway, I uploaded those photos of emphasis a little. To emphasize a little that it wasn't exactly the reality that was happening. Now, the world reports that he had traveled to the UK to do a medical ahead of an Arsenal move. So what he did to quash those rumors, he went and posted a picture of him, I think somewhere on the beach, to say, guys, I'm not where you think I am. So, but so those kinds of comments have what sort of throw his supposed move to Arsenal in doubt, based on those rumors. Now, again, speaking about his future, this is according to Deadline Day Live. Martin Zubimendi, my future, he said it will be a long summer. I do not know how it will end. And now, apparently, this is according to Mikel Ricardo, the comments. I do not know how authentic they are, but apparently it goes on to say, if Xabi Alonso calls me to join Real Madrid, I've already said Xabi is my idol, and it was a privilege to have him as my coach at La Real B. Remember, Xabi Alonso was Real Sociedad's B coach, and that was back in 2018, and at the time, Martin Zubimendi was still playing for that side as well. If you call me now, I do not want to talk about that hypothesis. I would rather talk about the present. It would be disrespectful to talk about that while I'm on national team duty. I posted pics on a Spanish beach while rumors said I'm in London doing medical exams for Arsenal. Yes, I did that to make it clear. Those rumors were not true. So those are some of the comments from Martin Zubimendi that have sort of cast a doubt among Arsenal fans over his impending move to Arsenal, as has been widely reported in the media. Then, moving forward, Brentford and Cameroon forward Brandon Mbeumo are hoping for wages of £250,000 a week, 5 times his current wage, if he joins Manchester United. That's according to the Times. And then Inter Milan have also made contact with Como manager Cesc Fabregas about the former Spanish midfielder taking over their new managerial following the departure of Simone Inzaghi. That's according to Sky Italy. Now, to expand on this situation, in the aftermath of that embarrassing defeat in the finals of the UEFA Champions League at the hands of PSG, Inter Milan sought to have a meeting, with their manager in Simone Inzaghi, and by the end of that meeting, the two parties had agreed to part ways. And as soon as that was announced, Al Hilal swooped in. They already had an offer on table for Simone Inzaghi, in which he could be earning up to 26 million euros per season. It's a 2-year contract ending June 2027, I think, with an option to extend for a further year. So today he's expected to be in Paris, France, to meet Al Hilal's president and other club bosses to conclude that deal, which will see him move to the Saudi Pro League. With his first task is to guide the team through the FIFA Club World Cup that is going to be in the United States of America. Speaking of Al Hilal, they've already agreed with AC Milan over in a deal about 30 million euros for the signing of French left back, that is Theo Hernandez, as one of the players that, again, according to reports, had been recommended by Simone Inzaghi because he wanted a left wing back. Then Al Hilal are also targeting to sign Victor Osimhen from Napoli. Now, it is being reported that they're going to have to fight or to battle it with Galatasaray over this signing. Now, reports do indicate that Al Hilal have put a proposal on table for a 4-year contract for Victor Osimhen, earning about 40 million euros per season. Then Galatasaray are willing to pay between 50 to 65 million euros to Napoli for the same player, to also give him a long contract where he would be earning almost half of what Al Hilal is proposing to offer. So let's wait and see what kind of decision that he does make in regards to his future. That's for the Nigerian international, because most Premier League clubs that would have loved to sign him have been put off by his wage demands. Last season, he had a very, very impressive campaign at Galatasaray. That's Victor Osimhen. So, and he was quite impressive for me, to say the least, because in 30 appearances, he scored 26 goals and provided 5 assists. That is a 31 goal contribution in 30 games, which is quite brilliant. Anyways, moving away from that, there's a Crystal Palace part owner, John Textor, who also owns French side Lyon, is trying to sell his majority shares in the club as the Eagles try to avoid being disqualified from the Europa League next season after breaking UEFA's multi-club ownership rules. Again, that is what we're just speaking about earlier on in part of this broadcast about the multi-club ownership, that it's a conflict of interest, so he needs to relinquish his shares in Crystal Palace or find a way of disassociating himself with the club in some form or way or perceived format, if Crystal Palace are not to be disqualified from the competition. Then, England goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale has held talks about a move to West Ham from Southampton, who are hoping to get at least £20 million for the 27-year-old following the club's relegation from the Premier League. Now, unfortunately, Aaron Ramsdale has been one of those goalkeepers who has had it unfair, to say the least. He got relegated with Southampton this season. Previously, he had been relegated with Bournemouth, had also been relegated with Sheffield United. Of course, he spent 3 seasons at Arsenal, and eventually Arsenal brought in David Villa. When they brought in David Villa, he became number 2, and yet he wanted to always be number 1. So it looks like West Ham could target him. West Ham have had a very, very horrible season, a very bad season. I think they finished 14th on the Premier League log, and under Graham Potter. I'm really going to be keen on Graham Potter in regards to what he can do with West Ham next season, really, because he came into the club in the mid of the season after they had sacked Julian Lopetegui and hoped to change the fortunes of the club. But looks like that has not happened at the moment. But let's wait and see what he has in stock for them. Then, this we spoke about last night, but in regards to Luka Modric, the 2018 FIFA Ballon d'Or winner, who, according to reports, according to Gianluca Di Mazzario via Football Italia, says that has verbally agreed to join AC Milan when he leaves Real Madrid after the FIFA Club World Cup this summer. Now, it is being reported that AC Milan have offered him a 1-year contract with an option to extend for a further year to see him join them in Italy. So really, that's a part of what we are getting in regards to Luka Modric. But that's the gist of the transfer speculation. We spoke about Ansu Fati edging closer to move to AC Monaco on a season-long loan with an obligation to buy for about 12 million euros and that kind of thing. So do keep your out for that deal to be finalized. But Luka Modric to AC Milan is potentially on. And then the other key news has been regarding, of course, it's been Jadon Sancho that has sort of dominated the press in recent times. And then Liverpool are prepared to seal Milos Kate's deal with one more round of talks to get it over the line. Bournemouth and Liverpool are finalizing the agreement after personal terms were agreed as far back as last week, and here we go is soon. That's according to Fabrizio Romano. While Manchester City are advancing on Ryan Abramovich after initial talks taking place with Wolves. Next steps to follow in the upcoming days after players' green light reported over the weekend. And then Joan Garcia and Barcelona, matter of a short time to complete the deal as it's all set between the goalkeeper and the club. 5-year deal being prepared. Then Barcelona will trigger his 25 million release clause, and then here we go soon. Then Tijan Riendas is on the verge of joining Man City from AC Milan. That's the 26-year-old. Dutch international. And in fact, according to Fabrizio Romano, he says Tijan Riendas to Man City. Here we go. Verbal agreement in place for the Dutch midfielder to join Manchester City. Deal almost done since yesterday as revealed and now being finalized for a package worth around 70 million euros. Personal terms sealed days ago and 4 more steps to follow. Here we go. That's according to Fabrizio Romano. And then the other issue has been between Job Bellingham choosing Borussia Dortmund over other suitors like RB Leipzig and Eintracht Frankfurt in Germany for the 19-year-old. But it looks like he's chosen to follow the footsteps of his brother and join Borussia Dortmund. So he's chosen Borussia Dortmund. It's now up to Borussia Dortmund to agree to terms with Sunderland, where it is being reported that he has about a 40 million euro release clause that they will not be negotiating whatsoever for any suitors of Job Bellingham. So that's the latest from the world of transfers. That's the latest on on Roman Abramovich, as well as Crystal Palace's issues with UEFA for breach of mark ownership. When it comes to John Textor, the 43% shareholder in Crystal Palace and 88% shareholder in Lyon. So that's the gist of the conversation, guys. We are 15 minutes into the broadcast, so I think you will allow me to wrap it here and wish you guys a wonderful rest of the day. Let's link up later tonight and discuss the rest of the news as it may fall through the day. And do not forget to always check out our channel for more content under the short section, under the video uploads, although we've not done quite a number of those in recent times, but we'll be looking forward to do a number. I'm particularly looking forward to discuss Man United and Arsenal in regards to how I think an ideal summer would look like for them, for either of them, and what next season could have in store for them. Have yourselves a blessed rest of the day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.